All set. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 8th Select Board meeting, Town of Brandon, Vermont, and thank you all for joining us tonight. First item is to adopt the agenda.
Make that motion.
Mr. Coolidge moves to adopt.
Second.
Mr. Wyman seconds. Are there any changes to be made to the agenda tonight? None heard. All in favor of approving the agenda as it was posted, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That's unanimous. Item 2, approval of the board minutes of October 25th.
Motion approved. Second.
Motion from Mr. Wyman and a second from Mr. Markowski. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes as they were submitted? If not, all in favor of adoption of the minutes as submitted, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Item 3, the town manager's report. Mr. Appleton.
That's my report for October 25th to November 5th. Conant Square parking area has been completed. The site was paved and light fixtures were supposed to be connected on the 3rd, but we have had some unforeseen stuff get stuck down one of the wire conduit things, so that's going to have to get cleared out before we can safely connect it. The stormwater swale has been completed in the Center Street parking area. Also, we will be installing no overnight parking signs on the west side of the parking lot so that we can safely remove snow there this winter. The first DEI meeting was held on November 3rd with Sue Gage and Bill Moore and myself. We decided to begin drafting a mission statement and start a rewrite in the employment harassment and discrimination section of our personnel policy as first steps. Attended the RRPC Transportation Council meeting on the 28th. Hot topics were the changes in the grants and aid program. Unfortunately, the RPCs are no longer going to be overseeing this program. This will now be run by VTrans and ANR. This will now be a lot of reporting responsibilities put on the towns for project completion and grant compliance. The grants and aid ones are the ones that we do for all of our stormwater, ditch lining. We do them every year. So that's kind of a bummer. Steve and I met with Alder Cinelli on the 29th for the 60% design completion of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. We also discussed reviewing our inflow and infiltration on a collection system and visited the Newton Road pump station site. Attended the VLCT webinar, Municipal Tree Laws and Responsibilities webinar on November 4th. Just a recap of the new public shade tree laws and roles of the tree warden. Actually, Neil Sellens attended that as well for the town. So, one thing I wanted to add that I was thinking about today and making the schedule for the budget meetings. The first meeting again is on the 15th, and we're looking at discussing the town clerk, town admin, zoning, and assessor. On the 29th, we'd like to do PD, recreation and economic development, and on December 6th, highway and buildings and grounds, and then our fourth meeting we'll recap when we can do intergovernmental, because we'll still be waiting for some of those sort of calendar year numbers versus our fiscal year numbers. So that's the tentative schedule. Rec news, basketball is back. Youth basketball signups for Brandon Rec open on Friday, November 5th. Open gym for kids in grades 3 through 6 start on November 11th. Practice for 5th and 6th grades will begin after Thanksgiving. 3rd and 4th grades will begin after Christmas. We will partner with Otter Valley and Pittsburgh Rec to do host preseason clinics led by the Otter Valley varsity players leading into the seasons. After a 20-month hiatus, adult pickup basketball will be back at Neshabe School on Thursdays from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. or p.m. While it is a free offering, anyone who wishes to attend needs to pre-register at our BrandonRec.com website for insurance and potential contact tracing purposes. And finally, take a bus trip with Brandon, Middlebury, and Pittsburgh Rec departments to see 17-time world champion Boston Celtics play against the 2021 NBA finalist Phoenix Suns at the TD Garden in Boston. Bill says, "Oh, be ready to disco because it is 70s night." The trip is on December 31st, 2021, for $195 a person, which includes transportation and ticket in new bar stool seating sections 301, 302, 303, and 329. There are some pandemic protocols that will need to be followed, including masking while on the bus and proof of vaccination status or a negative COVID test to enter the arena. Again, all registration and programming information is available at brandonrec.com.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Thank you, Mr. Recreation.
There's a lot of reading.
Before we go further, could you just clarify, because we have not talked about this in this way. You mentioned your first DEI meeting.
Yes.
We use a lot of acronyms, but this is, again, a new topic. Can you just elaborate on what that means?
Hopefully I got the letters right. Declaration of Equity, Inclusion, and Inclusion.
Diversity.
Diversity, so I know I'd get it wrong, so I'm thinking the other one.
Okay, so that's diversity, equity, and inclusion, and sometimes we'll see that come up as DEI. Any questions for the town manager? Mr. Cox?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. First of all, the EV parking lot's looking great. I'm actually parked down there, and I'll be very interested when the
Don't
lights...
call it the EV parking lot. There's only 4 spots for EVs.
Right? That's the only reason I go down there.
Okay.
It's because the EV
We
charger.
don't want to start that one.
Well, and it's also just a feather in our cap that we have that, because I think it's very, very cool that, we applied for that. We got it on the cheap, and it's a nice looking spot, and it's close to the center of town. So, I just think there's so many great things about that. And I'm assuming from your comments that that getting the electric to the lights is a priority that'll happen soon.
Yeah, they're hoping to do it Friday afternoon, and as all things happen on Friday afternoon, it
Yeah.
doesn't happen. So,
Well, very good. On a different but road-related topic, I was enjoying a little celebration with the Greenways group at Foley's Taco. I don't know if you noticed, but the little park has really come together nicely, and it's if any of you haven't seen it, it's on Franklin Street. Sometimes we refer to it as a little park for a little while, because it may just be temporary until it gets developed someday. But anyways, we were sitting there with our taco, and sure enough, we had to stop our conversation when a big truck came through town, and we commented on the engine braking. And I was kind of curious what had come up with that, because I remember a couple of meetings ago, we took a vote about putting signs up. And I know you had sent an email out after that, but I guess I'd like to know where we're at with that.
well, the email I sent out was that the state's guidance is that they frown upon these signs because engine brakes are actually a safety feature in these trucks, and in the commercial driver's license, I'm trying not to say the letters, it actually is one of the sections in there on using engine brakes. So to pull someone away from a safety feature that could potentially stop a truck very quickly is not advisable. And that's from the Attorney General's office. So that's what I sent out to you guys. And
I remember seeing that. I remember we talked about that in the meeting, though, because that's why we had talked about not making it like an ordinance that we were going to enforce, and that we were, at the time, there was some enjoyment of my suggestion that we make a suggestive sign. And I thought that's what that we had agreed, is that even though the state doesn't allow it on state land, that this was still something that we voted for in Brandon. I know that the people at the table that we were sitting at were commenting on how nice it would be to encourage trucks to not make those noises when they're coming through our community.
so from someone whose office sits on top of Route 7,
Yeah.
It's not as often as you think when the trucks use engine brake. There's not a lot of them that do. It's usually an out-of-state truck. It doesn't know the road.
Yeah.
I've noticed that quite a bit. And we did learn recently that even though we own, Center Street and Franklin Street and Grove Street, it's still a Class 1 highway, and that the state still has jurisdiction on where our signs are located and what they are. We went through that with the Purple Heart Town signs. We actually had to move them a little bit outside of where they were originally.
Yeah.
So they could tell us to take them down if they go up. And I mean, it's up to you guys, but I would strongly advise not to put those signs up. I don't think we need to make it look like we're taking a safety feature away from trucks. And it's Route 7. It's a state highway. It's a federal highway connector. We're gonna have trucks. There's no way around it.
No, I appreciate your position. I think at this point, I feel like we voted on this and we should put the signs up.
I'm not comfortable with that because the state's telling us not to do it. And, you know, we've worked really hard at getting the state, kind of us on their good side again and doing something that they say we shouldn't do, I don't think is a very good decision.
Well, I certainly appreciate your opinion. I mean, what you just said, I think, was the clearest, which is, you know, what we decide you're okay doing, and we had decided. Am I correct? This is what the note showed in a meeting that I looked at.
The board, yeah, we took a vote, and we took a vote to post a sign
Four
asking.
signs. Yep.
Right, asking drivers to limit use of engine brakes in the village or something like that.
Yeah.
What's the rest of the board think?
I guess I'm gonna have to label the idea that the state doesn't want us doing it, and probably we're better off not to. We're in good working relationships with the state. It is a safety feature, and I know that we talked about it being a suggestive thing.
Yeah. On the state website, they recognize that some towns have no engine braking. So it's not that they say it's illegal, they just don't allow it on state property. And I understand that position.
I'm just being totally honest with you. If I came down through Brandon and I came down from the Legion down through,
Sure.
and I don't have a log truck that holds 100,000 pounds, but if I did have a 100,000 pound load of logs on, I wouldn't care about your signs.
Well, and I'm totally with you there.
And that's where I'm at with it.
I mean, and if a truck needs to stop, I want him to use every safety device he has in his truck.
Right.
But what I thought we had come to last time was the idea that certainly many trucks go through town and they don't use their engine brakes. And part of it's planning ahead, part of it's just being a little thoughtful. And you're right, as somebody pointed out last time we talked about this,
Right.
Sometimes the sign is just going to exacerbate it. They're going to see it and say, you know, I'm going to do my engine brake anyway, and that's fine. But I think if we did it, it would deter some of it and improve my neighborhood. Because I mean, where I am, and when I'm laying in bed, I can hear trucks coming down that hill from the fire station. And the ones that choose not to use that engine brake, I'm very grateful for it. Because when they really land on it, it makes a huge racket.
Certainly does. I don't disagree with it.
Yeah, and again, the point that we had reached last time, which we voted on, and I'm just bringing up, is that it was going to be a suggestion, and nothing we would enforce, nothing we would have the police, you know, go after.
So you want us to spend money on 4 signs, 4 posts, put them in the ground for something that's suggestive that we can enforce?
That's what we had decided, so yes, I'd like us to follow through on what we voted for, and...
Okay, just for the record, I'm going to say that I'm not in favor of this, and I don't think it's a great decision. But whatever you guys want to do.
So I think Mr. Giles' point is that the board voted to take some action, and that basically the 2 options would be that we should follow through on that, or we should rescind the vote, perhaps. One of those 2 things. So
I
think they also chose to take action with what Dave
I
find out from the state too.
I think, I was just going to say that, but I wasn't sure because I haven't been back through the minutes, I
Our
haven't
opinion, so.
studied the minutes on it. But
We had discussed the state's position in that meeting, because we talked about not being able to put it on state land, and we talked about whether or not there would be some town land that we could use, and we agreed that there was town land that we could use.
I'm just looking for the minutes of that meeting.
And I think Seth makes the point very clearly, because I mean, I clearly do not run this board, and that's very fine. And so if we want to revote this, and you want to rethink what we did, that's a rational choice forward. I would love to have some of the people that are interested in this issue perhaps be involved again so that you could hear them and their concerns. So if we were going to revote this, maybe we could wait till another meeting. But if we're not going to revote this, I'd like to have the signs put up.
I'll make a motion to rescind it.
Mr. Wyman moves to rescind the vote to post the limitation on engine braking in village signs. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Mr. Coolidge seconds. Some discussion?
I'd like to put it off until next meeting so we can have the public who are concerned about this have a chance to see it on the agenda and come speak to it.
Is there public input tonight? Anybody? Yes, Jackson.
My folks lived at 34 Franklin Street probably 25 years ago, and they actually moved out of town because of the noise from the marble trucks, coming down that hill from the firehouse. And I live up on High Street, which is, a fair distance away, and I can still hear it, certainly when I have the windows open during the summer. So I would imagine that all the people now living on Franklin Street in that section probably would be willing to come to a meeting to discuss it.
I would like to address that. And the only reason I'm addressing it, 25 years ago, my departed brother-in-law ran Carter's, LF Carter's, and if there was an engine brake that came down through Randon, he would have fired the driver. So I'm really offended by you telling it was a marble truck. Because they weren't marble trucks, there were issues at that point. And I'm just saying that on behalf of my brother-in-law.
Okay, so trucks.
Right.
I stand corrected.
So what I'd like to know is when we put these signs up, even though the board or the consensus is right now that they're suggested, and truck drivers continue to use their engine brakes, and now PD gets calls, and we get calls at the office that trucks are still using their engine brakes, and you've got signs that say no engine brakes, and we say, well, they're just suggested, we can't enforce it. What's the point?
I think our point is to make an effort to make our community more pleasant. And I think it is something that needs to be explained. When people call in, if they say, hey, there's a sign, you can tell them that the board voted to not make it an ordinance that is enforced, and that rather it's to try to encourage truckers to be responsible. And many of them will. I believe that the vast majority of truckers probably are thoughtful when they come into community neighborhoods and realize that they don't want to be disruptive. And this is just, encouraging them to do the right thing.
So are we gonna have like another, I'm not trying to be difficult here, Tim, but I'm trying to get where does this stop? Because now we're gonna get people that come in and say, well, there's cars with loud exhausts. Should we put a sign up that says no loud exhaust on cars now? Or no motorcycles
I hear you.
with the baffles out of their mufflers?
So
it's gonna come, where does it stop?
Exactly. So my understanding is that other communities in Vermont don't have signs that say, no loud mufflers and, no straight exhaust pipes and all the litany of things that make noises. But that they do recognize engine braking as a category of noise that many communities prefer to try to find a creative way to deal with, which are these signs to invite truckers to be friendly to us, to be thoughtful when it comes to our community. Because we're not a highway, just, truck route. We actually are a full-blown community that has a rich life of a downtown, and yes, trucks come through, and I'm not suggesting they don't. I see you're going to say Onya has all their trucks coming through every day. Well, I'm not going to try to put words in your mouth. But, so yes, my answer would be, no, we don't need to have every level of noise addressed with a sign, but that this is one category of noise that communities in Vermont often come up with a sign for. And similarly, just so we're very clear, Dave, I'm not trying to be a problem either. I hope you understand I'm coming to this with the best of intentions here, to try to find a solution that will work.
Yeah, I just think spending money on 4 signs for suggestions is kind of a waste, and that we can't enforce it, why do we put the sign up?
I
I mean,
understand.
it's not like we do it for speeding, you know, we'd like you guys to do 25 through town, but if you don't, we're not gonna do anything about it. You know, it's kind of similar.
Other comment from the board or the public? So the minutes of September 27th, they do say that the motion passed unanimously, so any of us can move to reconsider. So there's a motion before the board right now to rescind that motion, that action of the board from September 27th. Any more discussion? Any consideration of tabling it to a future meeting?
I certainly would like that.
You want to vote?
Okay,
Are ready to vote?
it can be brought up in another meeting anyway, correct?
Yes. Yep, true.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a question, a clarifying question?
Yeah,
Is the location to put these signs at the top of the hill as the trucks are coming into town?
I think we had talked about putting them at the four points, two ends of Route 7 and two ends of Route 73. And I think that I'm open to the logic of where it works best. My sense is, from just having thought about the rationale of why these trucks use the brakes, it's because they're coming over the hill hot, you know, pretty fast. And so then they've got to slow down somehow, and they reach for the truck brake. You know, it's not like they're trying to make noise, but they just don't think until then. And so what I would do, if I were putting the signs up, is try to put them far enough out so they realize, coming up a hill, if I start slowing down, I won't need to use my truck brake. So that's my thought. Did you have other input to that idea?
I was just trying to understand where the vote was, if there was a location specified as to where they would go, because I understand Dave's position in standing by the welcoming Purple Heart sign and finding out that the town had to remove it from where it was because the state didn't comply with it. And I think that oftentimes you'll see signs that are suggestive in nature, or even ordinance signs, are typically at town lines as you're entering into a town.
Right.
So when you come right in the beginning, you know that there's a winter parking ban in a certain town, or there's some regulation at the town. Again, you run into a problem that if it's not enforceable, what's the point in putting up the sign? But again, that's not my vote. I understand that that's yours. I'm just saying, I think you're going to find truck traffic as they come down a steep embankment where you have a flashing speed sign that encourages people to slow down. If they're not doing it, they're going to use their truck brake because that's what it's designed for.
Exactly.
So I don't know that a sign is going to make that difference, other than to the truck drivers that tend to try to be courteous every town that they go through, and yet every day we have trucks that go, you know, try to go over the covered bridge, or try to go over a high pond where they're not supposed to, and pass very large, you know, bright yellow signs that tell them that they can't do that. So just bringing up a point, if you're going to post them, I don't know if you had given any thought as to where they would be posted.
We hadn't gotten that far.
I just have one other, oh, go ahead, Mike, sorry.
Well, just kind of on that location topic, I mean, if we were to find, say, town property along these routes, to stay outside of the state right away.
I can tell you where they are.
And just,
Right, and will the signs even be noticeable outside the state right away on, say, a 5-rod road or a 6-rod road?
So,
I think we're
well,
just even.
I don't think the state's gonna let us put them on in there, but
Right,
our town highway starts on the class 1 roads, when it goes from state to class 1, right by the Legion, coming in from the south. From the north side is where Steinberg Road is. 73 is just this side of the town garage, where it turns to 50, that's where it is. And the other one on 73 is the intersection of Wheeler Road, right there by Village Spa and Doc Foster's. So one clarification, when this came up last time, it's not that I like willfully neglected to not put signs up. I brought this up to Elaine in our office, and it's because it was discussed. I think Tracy mentioned something that there might have been signs there years ago.
there was
And
signs.
Elaine said the same thing, that there were, and there was a reason why we had to get rid of them. So that's when her and I started doing the research on it and found that the state says, well, this isn't, we don't advise this, which is why I sent this out to the board.
Great.
You know, I think that I'd rather see us do something by the book and right than throw something up there and then V-Trans come through again and say, whoa, these aren't legal, you can't have these out there. So.
And I believe the signs that were there before were a suggestive sign. I don't believe
I
that.
think that, you're right.
And it was across from Green Mountain Drive, if I'm.
That was way before segment 6 though. We looked
Yes,
at
it
it,
was.
was quite some time
It
ago.
was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, and they were suggestive signs at that time.
Okay.
I think they read to the point of please limit the use of engine brakes
Right.
through town.
That's great wording, simple, direct.
Bill Moore.
Yeah, I just, listening to this all go back and forth, it's interesting. I think it's interesting that our presumption is that the people that are doing this are doing it unnecessarily, I guess, and that, you know, that when they apply the engine brakes, that they don't need them, that they're doing it to cause us harm or disrupt our quiet village life. Like, I feel like most people are doing things the right way when they're coming through our town. They're applying the engine brakes because they need to, and I think putting up that sign sort of presumes that they're doing it in a way that's not responsible, not going to drive irresponsibly, I guess.
They're doing it because they're carrying too much speed in the middle of our village, which has been a problem consistently. And now, if they're concerned about getting to that yellow light and that at the stoplight, they're carrying that speed through a yellow light, and when I'm at Carver Street, through a red light.
And it's the next one at the front of the library, when it turns red, that's when the guy had to hit his brakes because he was coming so fast to get through the yellow, and then he had to stop at the next one. That's the particular case. And right, Bill, I don't assume that they're doing this maliciously, but I get the feeling that trucks that come through our town regularly, if they saw something like that, might think more ahead. Because many trucks come through town and don't use their engine brakes.
And the other thing might be a better suggestive thing, upon everybody's part, was something like that there's stop sign or stoplights ahead, and I think, like Bernie just said, like you said, that's what happened. I mean, if that truck had known back at, by the Legion, that there was stoplights ahead, he probably would have been ready, so that wouldn't have happened.
I mean, I believe there is already speed limit reduced signs there to warn
That's the next
anybody.
Two new flashing ones that are quite easy.
But even warning signs by the state, the speed limit reduced ahead, I believe there is one on each end
It does say that
anyway.
anytime there's a speed limit change, we have to do it. So,
Right.
so it goes from 50 there to 40 to
Gotta
35
go
to
in
25.
increments, certain increments
Yeah, the
down.
one here goes from 50 to 35 to 25.
Right.
So, and that's way back by Nickerson Road.
Yeah, there's speed limit reduced ahead signs up already. I mean, it's.
I think those traffic flashing lights, Dave, have been really helpful too. I think they've really slowed traffic a lot in
Yeah.
the village on both sides.
I've heard that from a lot of people, that they're very happy with those signs. So.
But
Because
it kind of exacerbates your problem, Tim, because you're right, they come down the hill, and you said it too, Mike, they come down all of a sudden, they got, like, oh shit, they put on their, oops,
Yeah.
they put on their, Jake brake to slow down, get down below that
It
speed.
makes a big difference in my neighborhood.
Anything further to be said? If not, ready to vote? So all in favor of rescinding the vote of September 27th to post the engine brake signs, so be in favor of rescinding, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
3. Opposed?
Nope.
I'll say no, because I think we should do it next meeting, but 3 to 2. Anything else?
That's really nice.
Anything else from the board for the town manager or the recreation or economic development officer? Anything from the public for the town manager tonight? Or members of the press attending by Zoom? Nothing yet. Can always have public comment anywhere we want. Item 4, public comment and participation, items not appearing on the agenda. Anything from the board? No. Anything from the public in attendance? Or Zoom? We can always come back. Item 5, Geotechnical engineering proposal, Arnold District box culvert.
So this is, they're gonna do some borings out where we're gonna replace that box culvert that we did get some class 2 funding for, at our Arnold District. And, it's a little bit above my authorized amount, so, by $1,200, $1,100, so asking the board to, consider approving that so we can get those borings completed.
And what's the funding source from this? Is this the highway?
It's
operating
the class 2 highway grant. It's a grant, it's a $200,000 structure grant.
Sorry, what's the town's funding source for the 11,200 you spent?
Oh, we'll take it out of highway or budget.
The highway operating
Budget
budget.
reimbursed
The
for
current year's highway operating. What's the pleasure of the
I
board?
make a motion that we approve this.
A second.
Motion from Mr. Giles and a second from Mr. Markowski to go ahead. So this is entering into an agreement with Du Bois and King to provide a
Correct.
service
Correct.
about the box. So the box culvert,
Oh,
for those interested in knowing what it's talking about, so this is just north of like Adams Road, Hollow Road and Adams Road,
That's right at Adams Road.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Little structure in the dip there.
little structure.
It's pretty old, it's falling apart.
Any discussion or public input on that?
And I suppose it's important to let people know that this is just an exploratory phase, from what I read of the proposal, right?
We need to do it to see if we're gonna do a 3-side box, 4-side box.
Exactly.
We have to go for footings in it.
It was really quite interesting. They're going to core this thing and try to figure out what's underneath the road. It looks really. I know there's someone here who lives right near there. Do you have any questions about this project?
property owner.
Do you have any questions about the project?
Not really, no. There's a bridge there, it's not in the world's greatest shape. The ditches on either side are filled in, so they hold water, it doesn't drain into the Arnold Brook, but it clearly needs work.
Great.
Anything else? All in favor of adopting the engineering proposal by Du Bois and King, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. It's unanimous. Item 6, a proposal for cybersecurity.
So, I might have
The IT director is here.
Mr. Moore actually speak on this because he's been sort of the ringleader on this, if he would like to. I'd like to put him on the spot. If you want.
Sure, in front of you, you guys have a quote from a local contractor whom we used to use. And based on the assessments, we took an assessment with the BLC assessment of our security at the town offices and with our municipal office, and their suggestions are reflected in that quote of things that we need to do to be more secure, to make sure that we're up to date and as ransomware proof as we can be.
So, Bill, this is a question that just occurred to me. So, is the NEMRIC modules and stuff outside of this?
In the cloud. So that operates, this is just for our own security on our PCs, laptops that we have in the town office. To have a contract with them taking care of that, the necessary software, the correct licenses that we need for our Microsoft Office suite that right now we've copied together.
And is this just the town office, or are there other locations?
Town offices, wastewater, highway.
Highway. Police are separate.
Actually, Chief and I were just talking about this. What would happen is this new contractor, Silhouette, would have to be certified to work in the police departments. So if they're certified to do that work, then we could move forward with that.
So I didn't get a copy of this, and I'm seeing it now. It looks like it's mostly hardware, but you just described, are you going to be contracting with them to actually do some administration?
Yes. Yes, they'll be on call for us as far as IT. We're doing trainings with our personnel about looking at phishing scams. Well, cybersecurity, but phishing scams, how to pick up phishing. They have the software that they run. once a month that goes, that sends these tests.
And so what is the recurring cost on a yearly basis to get that kind of administration?
Off the top of my head, it's right there in front of you, it says a monthly charge with associates. It's not cheap. 600 and some odd dollars a year.
So, $77.88 a year.
Monthly total, 650, is that what I see?
What's that?
Monthly total is 650, that's the bottom
Yes.
first page?
Yes.
And
And so 2,500 one-time fee.
Yes.
So $10,000.
Yes.
Is it your recommendation?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so like right now we have an IT department that's, you know, by hook or by crook. I'm the head IT guy because I happen to be the second youngest person in the office. And have the patience to operate the computers, you know, but I mean, really, like, we are exposed. I mean, this is not, you know, like, we all kidding aside, like this, you know, we've put this together, we've tried to do it again, but, you know, on the cheap, and, you know, we've been very lucky. I mean, we actually weren't, like, a couple years ago when we lost some data. So this is.
But with what happened
Yes.
in that case, which I'm glad you brought up,
Yes.
would that necessarily have been prevented by this kind of service being in place?
Yes,
Really?
absolutely, yes.
Not the service.
One, because we were backing up, we weren't backing up to a cloud network at that point. We were backing up.
Oh, so the data loss would have been recoverable?
Would have been recoverable, and again, we would have had
But
constant monitoring. Like
The
we
event
were,
still could have happened.
the event could have happened, but we would have had access to all of our data that we
Okay.
had prior to that. We might have lost a day instead
Okay.
of many days worth
Yeah.
of material. And again, like right now, we are, you know, we did some fixes at that time that were, you know, again, a little duct tape here, swizzle stick there in place, and we were able to make it work, but I mean, I can't be your IT director anymore just because I cannot keep, I don't have the credentials, nor can I stay on top of the technology. And, I mean, you know,
So
I think,
one of the,
is this the only quote?
well, we had another guy, but there was some, they want to do something for us, I can't remember what it was. like-
yeah, it's one of those places out of VLCT. But this is a local guy who's familiar with our network, who helped us out before, and when we got ransomware, jumped in.
And who is this person?
Silhouette, Dean Silhouette Networks.
So this did come out of, we do the annual VLCT sort of questionnaire on everything, and this was one thing that they really wanted to see us move forward with, was getting better cybersecurity.
And, I mean, he's familiar, he's doing this work for other towns as well. Like, this is not an uncommon number.
And so he's basically on call to us, but
And we
he's not like, he's not putting in a specific number of hours each week or month.
They'll be monitoring all of our traffic and using the Microsoft Office, the Microsoft suite of security stuff plus some other monitoring software to make it work and back and everything work for us.
We're
And
gonna
training.
have to have somebody do this at this point, there's no way that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to see him moving forward on this. I've been concerned about cybersecurity.
I appreciate that we need some cybersecurity service. I'm hesitant to do this on the basis of one quote.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say no if this is the only way forward, but is there a possibility of another quote?
Oh, I'm sure that there's always possibilities.
I mean,
We could-
it's not like, you know, once and done, like this is entering into a relationship, like you say, that's gonna be in the $8,000 to $10,000 a year range going forward.
I mean, you know, in my, you know, professional opinion, I think that, you know, Dean Silhouette has been doing this a long time and does a really good job, and there are other towns that use him and do right by him. He was our guy until we went away from him, and when we went away from him, we ended up with the, you know, issues that we ended up having. They're right in Rutland, they can be here. Right now we have a contract with a guy that can sometimes fit us in, sometimes he can't. It drives from, you know, 2 hours away, and again, it's like one of those, yeah, he's a good guy, but again, it's one of these guys that just sort of does things like, well, we can get around this by doing this, or we can get 3 licenses for Microsoft Office if, you know, because you can put it on 5 different computers. And like, we can't run our municipal entity that way, you know, the way that we might try to do, you know, to share our Microsoft licenses if we were in a household together.
I don't think we're at the point where we can do this on the cheap at all anymore. There's too much involved at this point.
So, the chief's here, without going into too much, putting you on the spot kind of thing, like, is cybersecurity at the police station in hand, so to speak, through other ways, or?
It is, I mean, we're on Microsoft Office 365 through the state, so the state licenses us, and we also have firewalls between us and the computers that access the state information. I haven't really had any conversations with Bill about this, other than briefly when I heard about this was to say, is this somebody that would also come and check or monitor the PD computers? I mean, even in-house stuff, sometimes you need some working on that. It's beyond my scope now with all the stuff that we keep and that we house. And again, there are some times when we require the services of somebody, and it bothers me to have to pay somebody a travel fee to come to the PD to look at something when they can log on and do it remotely. So I don't know how all the costs are justified and what is reasonable and not, and would really rely on somebody else's expertise to tell me what that would be.
Further board questions, comments? Public comment?
I think I might just chime in and say that it does seem to make sense if we have a relationship with someone local, rather than looking for quotes from somebody further away to use that local person.
And there's no like cooperative thing, like with the state purchasing through the, you know how sometimes you guys buy stuff? No, this isn't a service that comes.
No, there's been some that have popped up through the league. So, I mean, I one can say, not saying this out of spite or anything, but I mean, this was within my spending limit for even doing it annually, but I thought it was important enough for us to discuss it, you know, with the board, because it has been a hot topic.
Well, it's got an ongoing budget impact.
Absolutely. I think it's another like insurance. It's certainly cheaper to do this than have to deal with what we dealt with before.
And again, like I said, you know, I say it like this, you know, as much as I'd love to control things, whatever, but letting go of control of this would be nice, understanding that, again, I am just a few Google searches away from, you know, from being Tracy or Dave or Charlene, as far as like trying to help make these things happen and calling this computer guy and hoping he can show up and get us back online. I mean, this is a great example of an ounce of prevention being worth a pound of cure, because someone could come in tomorrow, lock everything down, and we got a ransomware for $500,000 that may or may not let us have our data back.
I agree with Tim. I mean, it's good to have it local, have somebody right here. It's, anywhere here before, we did our own thing.
All right.
So I'll make a motion to go as Silhouette.
Motion for Mr. Ryan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second for Mr. Giles, is there further discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor of accepting the quote from Silhouette Networks for cybersecurity, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Call unanimous? Yeah. Item 7, thank you, Mr. Moore. Union Street.
So, in front of you, we have some alternatives for Union Street sidewalk. As you know, we got a grant for $300,000 last year. The town originally had a $75,000 match. As you can see, to do the entire, both sides of sidewalk and curb and stormwater for Union Street, costs a little bit more than $375,000. So Dave Conger and I had talked about what we, some other alternatives. On getting that sidewalk rebuilt, which is in super poor shape and everything else, as you guys know, you go down that street. I would like to see, concrete, PCC is Portland concrete, just so you know. Like to see concrete and new curb. That is the highway, the most expensive way to go, but it's gonna last for quite a long time. We'd be doing granite curb like we have through the rest of the town. And the other reason I'm bringing this to you is that we have a local option tax that was set for these types of capital projects. We could easily cover the cost with that and still have money left in that project. It'd be done. I think it'd be nice to have it all done.
What's the balance in the local option?
Oh, I just wrote it down. It's 438,000, I believe.
And you're saying we have a grant for 300?
We have a grant for 300. We have to
So
match
we
it.
need 294?
I think so. I think that, I gotta look, I just wrote it down, I can't remember.
The $75,000 town match that you referred to was not, we didn't have that funded yet. That was to be funded out of
Correct.
local option or something.
Correct.
What does, we've been talking about our ARPA projects. This won't affect any of that?
So we couldn't do sidewalk and curb because this was already money that was, because the project was already granted funds. We can use ARPA if we decide to go forward with the water, sewer, and then.
Right, so what I'm asking is this a section of Union Street that if we went forward with ARPA funds, that this would be taken care of partially with ARPA funds?
Not for this, not for the sidewalk.
They wouldn't be going that far.
Because it's already grant funded.
It's already
We can't
grant.
match the grant funding with ARPA, unfortunately.
So I see that the second, I'm sorry,
No.
I see the second option says sidewalk with existing curb, it's $150,000 less. And I'm looking at the notes where you can't entirely remove curb work, but it does seem like an interesting compromise to try to use the existing curb as much as possible and remove and reset them.
You might want to go look at it. It's like the marble curb that was on Park Street. It's pretty beat up.
Does any of it fall into the historic category?
Well, we
It's a
don't
stupid
know.
question.
We'd have to go through historic preservation on that. The other problem is a lot of the properties that sit on the west side of the road, their front lawns are higher than the sidewalks, and all the marble has started to go like this into this, so we'd have to pull it anyway and probably try to re-slope front lawns, or, it'd have to come out no matter what. Once we pull the sidewalk out, that marble's probably gonna fall over.
That $150,000 savings that it looks like here, remove and reset, could disappear by removing and resetting that. There's a lot more work to do.
Yeah, how much of that marble fell apart on Park Street,
Well, I mean, I gotta believe that the reason he came up with these options was because this is a possible cost.
Because I asked them to.
Well, exactly. But I mean, it just seems like it makes sense to weigh that possibility.
Well, I'm looking at it again, and and I kind of talked to Seth about this a little bit, so he's understood sometimes I get a little excited about this. That we have an opportunity right now with this local option tax, which was set up specifically for capital projects. It's the only thing it can be used on. That this is the type of thing that we should be spending the funds on. And even when this started, it was that, we could pave roads with it, we could do sewer line with it, and we could do sidewalks with it. That was like the big thing right off the bat with local options. So I think this project fits underneath it. It's another, part of town that we can, actually work off of 7-6 from to tie it into where our new sidewalk down by Barlow Ave is done, and it would all be done, and it would all be new, and then we get some longevity out of it. And
So what I was noticing, the second option, as you were talking about, Tim, if you read the comments,
Yeah, I see.
it says, will at minimum need to remove and reset these which is basically moving you down to the fourth option, down at $518,000 value.
Is it- Oh, and I see that the
You see,
asphalt will be
that's-
the other one. Yeah.
That's a concrete sidewalk, remove and reset existing curb.
Yeah.
And that second option just says, in the comments, will at minimum need to remove and reset these. So cross that 444,000 right out. And move down to the fourth option, be back up over $500,000 to do the job.
Yeah.
Even using the old curb, removing and resetting.
Yeah.
So in terms of local option account, right, so our most recent local option payment from the state was $62,245. So are we safe to annualize that above $200,000 a year now?
Well, it looks like it'd be like 240 at this
Well,
point.
240 if that was a representative quarter, but
It's hard to tell, I mean, this was the first year we've seen those types of numbers, but, I do think at some point, after we keep holding on to $500,000-$600,000, plus our auditors are gonna be like, you gotta do something with this money, we're sitting on it in local options. We should be spending it on infrastructure. We just went through this with wastewater, if you remember too, that the bond bank suggested that, we have contingency money in there that we should be putting in something and not saving for a rainy day, so. I think Sue just signed you guys' financials.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at. That's where I got that number. And then the unrestricted fund balance, she's got,
We don't want to touch that.
well, no, but we're supposed to hang on to 15% of the town, of the operating budget in unrestricted fund balance. All right. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, you gotta decide which option you want to go with at this point, right?
We can decide which option we want to go with, if any, and identify funding from the local option tax. So it's 438, and we're looking to obligate 375.
It's not that much, and I'm gonna have to pull it up. I wrote it all down, it's in my folder with this in it, and I apologize for that.
Is it possible you could give that to us for the next meeting so we could kind of mull?
Send it to you tomorrow morning.
I mean, if it's not time sensitive, I would love to be able to kind of stew on this for a meeting cycle. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, we've got time for it, it's fine.
Take no action, look for some more.
Yeah, it's certainly, I think, I hope you get the impression that we're favorable towards doing this. I mean, I'm favorable towards it.
It would be good to sit down with Sue and,
Well, I can get you guys a number, I apologize, I didn't have my folder with me tonight.
That's okay.
The rest of the numbers are nice.
Yeah.
has she been able to really ascertain when we get those payments from the state? Has she been able to know?
Nobody knows, they just show up. That's how they reimburse us for everything, you never know when it's coming.
There's no advice, huh? There's no,
No, Jackie comes out and says, we got paid today, and there's, something that's been sent to us.
it's amazing. It's quite a way to run a cookie factory. All right, so we'll look at this some more. How about the warrant?
Make a motion to approve
Excellent.
$428.54.
Second.
Any questions on any of the bills? If not, all in favor, wait a minute. Why does it have a different figure at the end of page 5 than on the agenda? Should be 363, 428.
That should be 363.
Will you accept it, friendly?
I will.
Yeah, 363, 428, 54. All in favor of approval of the warrant as it was submitted in the amount of $363,428.54, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Any announcements for the good of the community at this time?
I have one.
Yes.
It's been brought to my attention that some people are asking why the water fountains in town look like TVs. So, they're actually winterized. We don't want anything to freeze up in there, and that means basically like a pool system for our valves and our piping and everything, that we'd rather antifreeze them and wrap them up so they'll work next spring.
But it doesn't take any heat or anything like that, does it?
No.
Good.
No,
They're just antifreeze and pressure, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So when will you be opening them up? Do you have a date? Whenever?
The groundhog will let us know.
No, I was just curious if you had a cycle already.
Any other announcements? Mr. Carr?
I was getting back to your Union Street deal too. The fourth quarter will be a good check then come the first quarter of next year. It'll be a good check for the 1% option tax.
That's what we're just trying to determine, whether the check of $60,000 that she reported to us on September 30th maybe was from the second quarter in fact, right? Because it would be too early to be.
Well, either way, before springtime, you should be getting that. You know, that's a big fourth quarter, big quarter. First quarter's crappy quarter.
I think well, you and I discussed that too. I'm pretty sure that was.
So the second quarter, April, May, June.
Yeah.
I think they've been increasing. I mean, I've been following that. She sends those out to Bernie and I actually quarterly, and, you know.
Well, I think that when the state started collecting it on internet purchases, I feel like
That was a big
it was a
bump.
big jump.
Yeah.
in the, you know. Okay, very cool. Other announcements? If not, number 9.
Motion adjourned.
Mr. Coolidge moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Sure.
Mr. Juan, this is not debatable. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous at 7:57.